we'll have Mr. Praveen Kulkarni, who is the country manager, Cyber Resilience, Microfocus India, for his technology presentation on technology outcomes driving resilience.
Praveen Kulkarni. I manage the cyber resiliency business for Microfocus for India. In today's session, I'll talk to you about cyber resiliency. What is cyber resiliency and why do you need to be cyber resilient? If you look at 2020, it has been a challenging year, right? The very way which we live and function has all changed. Education for children has become online. Healthcare has become online. And if you look at the way we work, I think the biggest change is that we all started working remote, right? Now, if you look at cybersecurity, this has had an exponential impact because earlier cybersecurity was all a function of a perimeter. You had a data center, you had a perimeter, you put controls around the perimeter. So anything that was inside the perimeter was trusted. Anything was outside, you had to do checks and balances. But now with all the employees being remote and even the people who manage the data center being remote, that whole definition of perimeter has now changed. It's completely distributed. This increases risk and complexity in cybersecurity manifold. Now, if I was to dial back a little, right, how did we reach this stage, right? If you look at 2001 to 2008, it was all an era of standardization and compliance. If you look at banking, it's all about PCI DSS. It was all about ISO 27001, right? There were regulations and banks had to, and BFSI companies had to meet those regulations. It was all about managing data and showing that you were compliant. As we moved into 2008 and beyond, companies began to see that the number of attacks and the attack vectors had begun to change, and you needed to have systems which would detect threats and manage those threats, right? So you need to de-risk your systems. But as you moved into 2014, technology became an enabler. So companies began to adopt digital transformation. So as most of your systems now began to be digital, you also had to up your cybersecurity platforms. So it was just not about managing threats, but you have to actively go and start hunting threats. And now where we are is that digital transformation has pretty much hit hypergrowth. And now the way we look at future is more optimistic that digital transformation and cybersecurity can actually drive growth for you. Right? But there is a primary difference that one will need to have from an approach perspective when you look at cybersecurity is that it has now moved to what we call cyber resiliency. So what is the difference between the two of this? It's the way you approach, right? In cybersecurity, you go with the mindset that as of today, you are secure. There are no threats within your system. There are no attacks within your system. You have a few vulnerabilities, and that you put controls to manage that, right? So the entire cybersecurity posture is about how do you protect your systems, how do you prevent an attack, and in the eventuality of an attack, how do you restore? But if you look at cyber resiliency, the approach is different. Here you assume that the threat actor has already done his reconnaissance, done his enumeration. He has already infiltrated your system and he's at present as part of your system. He's only waiting for the right moment, right, to exploit and execute his objectives, right? So given a situation like this, that the threat is real and the threat can happen anytime, the attack can happen anytime, you need to anticipate that the threat is going to happen. You need to be able to withstand that attack. Your critical business processes and technical processes during the time of attack should still be up and running. And when the attack happens, you should be able to quickly recover your systems back to 100% and then not only recover, but also perform, right? That is cyber resiliency. Now, if you look at cyber resiliency, it will primarily, as we go forward in this era of digital transformation and hyper growth, it is going to pretty much enable everything in the enterprise. And what companies need to look for is enterprise resiliency. And this has multiple aspects to it, right? There is strategic resiliency, where you need to de-risk your long-term growth. You need to look at financial resiliency, where you look at risks which affect your financial performance and profitability and address that. You need to look at operational resiliency, which looks at business continuity and operational continuity. And if you look, it's cyber resiliency, which will give you the underlying platform for all these enterprise resiliency. Now, does one need to have so many checks and balances, right? Do companies really need to be cyber resilient? Now let's just look at what's the kind of threat attacks and the kind of overall map of attacks that you have from a cyber attack perspective, right? I'll just take an example of BFSI and let's talk this through. This is the state of threat attacks from a global financial institute's perspective. It's not a superset, it's a very small subset. And here you will see that attacks happen pretty much across the globe, right? Whether it's a ransomware attack, it's a skimming attack, it's a breach, it's a supply chain attack, or a DDoS, right? This is the point I was making earlier, is that when the breach happens, it's not that the attack happened weeks ago. The thumb rule is generally the infiltration would have happened close to 233 days before the breach happens. That is why companies need to have a cyber resilience kind of an approach. Right? And a general attack roughly costs an institution close to $6 million. And more than 67% of financial institutes have reported that they've had an attack over the last year. Right? Now, which are the verticals who are prone to attacks? And the first of all of them, unfortunately, is the BFSI segment. Right? Over the last 1 year, we've seen a certain spike in the healthcare segment. It's primarily because the R&D work that they've been doing and the work that on vaccines that they've been doing, that they become prime targets. But if you look at trend over the years, BFSI segment, unfortunately, is prime target number one for all cyber attacks. Right? Now, if you look at the right bottom corner, these are the APT groups which focus on the financial institutes, right? Like Lazarus, APT 37, 26, Fin7, Cobalt Group, right? These are groups which focus and attack financial institutions. And on the top right, if you see, these are the kind of attacks that they do, right? You have account takeover, credit card fraud, new account fraud. Now, if I was just to take one attack parameter, like an account takeover, and look at what is the kind of tool sets that attacker use, right? This is what they do, right? Again, this is not a superset, this is a small subset. So the attackers are many, the modes they use are many, and the tools that they use are many, and hence the need for companies to be cyber resilient, right? If you just look at malware-based attacks, they can use cyber hooking, they can do, they can steal your credentials from your volatile memory, they can circumvent your multi-factor authentication by compromising your earlier tokens. They can do authentication bypass. And one of the most well-known ways of attacking is phishing, right? It can either be employee phishing, it can be customer phishing, it can be sphere phishing, and the age-old methods of attacks, right? Which is a dictionary-based password attacks and brute force. And this canvas is only growing for your attackers, right? They have reached now such a state of sophistication that you can actually have crime as a service. So if you need a financial institute or any institute to be hacked, you can actually go to the darknet and buy that as a service, and somebody will actually hack that for you, right? On the left side, what you see from a cyber attacks, the kind of offerings they have, phishing, ransomware, there is malware loaders, inject kits, leader attack tools. And on the right side on the top, you have how is it that they execute it? And the bottom is what they actually do, right? What they go behind is your data, your credit card data, ransomware, and wire fraud, right? Now, the attacks that are most common and what you need to look for is phishing, right? It's phishing, there's ransomware, double extortion, third party, and data breaches, right? Whilst again, this is a small subset, phishing again, whilst you can have technology solutions for it, the main one is actually education, right? How do you change behavior within employees and customers so they can always look out for phishing attacks? Data breaches you can address through encryption, right? And third-party supply chain like SolarWinds, which was one of the most talked about attack here. There you need to look at software security assurance, right? How does Microfocus help you, right? So for us, cyber resiliency is what we offer, and we help customers take a cyber resilient posture. Now, this is what we do. We secure the entire enterprise. We look at giving you a consolidated view across the company, the kind of threats that you have, and we help you take a cyber resilient posture. That is because we don't go a siloed approach. We look at what is critical for your company. We look at identities, we look at applications, and we look at your data. The reason we do this is that most of the attacks that happen always happen through the identities, through compromised credentials. So it's absolutely critical for you to protect your identities. The attack always happens on the applications. So again, it's important to protect your applications, and the attack is always on the data, right? Enveloping this, you need a next-gen SOC, which will always be looking at known and unknown threats and have an active threat hunting program. Right? Now, this is the portfolio that we have. Voltage is primarily for data privacy, is protecting your data. NetIQ is an identity and access management solution for managing identity. Fortify is for application security, and ArcSight is what we offer as a next-gen SOC. And layered with all these products is our artificial and machine learning interfaces. Now, if I was to look at Voltage, in data privacy, what you need to look for is, one, you need to analyze your data. You need to classify it. You need to look at what has value and what has risk. And data which has risk is what you will need to protect. And you'll need to look at this both from an on-prem perspective and also from a cloud perspective, right? So this is the portfolio that we have. Is a Voltage secure data, where we offer encryption services. We offer tokenization services and stateless key management. Right? This is primarily for structured data. For Smart Cipher, this is primarily for persistent file encryption, and we also offer email encryption, which is both for on-prem, for cloud, and also for Office 365. If you look at NetIQ, this is primarily for identity and access management. Here, what companies will need to look for is you need to have a single source of truth from an identity management across your organization, no matter who the users are, what are the devices, what are the applications, what are the services, both internal and external, right? Only when you have a single source of truth can you be able to put a governance mechanism on top of that. You need to have a clear access policy for all users. And very important, you also need to monitor your privileged users, right? So this is what NetIQ does. We offer you a identity management solution. We offer you an access manager, which gives you single sign-on, multi-factor authentication. We also have a privileged access manager solution. And overlaid on top of this is a governance kind of a solution. If you look at Fortify, this is for application security. If you look at the number of applications that companies are now releasing, it has gone up many-fold, right? And with DevOps, the iterations which are happening on the applications has again grown exponentially. Combined with this is the use of open source. And if you look at the ratio of developers versus security professionals are a small fraction of it, right? So what happens is a lot of software which gets released in the market is not completely secure, and that leads to attacks in it. So what companies would need to do is you need to have an application security program, which is, one, developer friendly, which is fast, which has the least false positive, and completely integrated as part of your CI/CD pipeline. And that's exactly what we do with Fortify. We offer you static scan where you can scan your code and also integrate it as part of your IDE. We also offer you dynamic scan where you can scan your applications. We have scanning for your open source through SCA and also API security. And we offer this on-prem. We offer this as a managed service and also on cloud. And lastly comes ArcSight. If you look at the SOC, most companies have SOCs, but the alerts that come to them are delayed. The number of alerts that you have are so huge that the SOC analysts pretty much are inundated with what is an actual threat and what are false positives, right? Also, skill sets in the SOCs. It's very difficult to get experienced SOC analysts, and automation is always a problem. And this is exactly what ArcSight addresses. We give you a single data platform which manages and ingests pretty much any data which is there in a data center. We give you a log management solution which gives you a single view of logs across your organization. We give you an ESM, which is an SIEM platform, which has the industry's leading correlation engine. It's it's pretty much in memory and real time that you can look at threats. I talked to you about the APT groups, FIN7 and Cobalt. We have integrated those attack use cases as part of our SIM. So if you do have attacks from these groups, your SIM will pretty much in real time block them, right? And then we have a SOAR platform integrated and an end-to-end a single GUI. So this is the platform. We have Recon, which is a log management solution, ESM, which is our SIM solution, and ArcSight Intelligence, which is a UBA solution. We have an overarching SOAR, which covers all of this, and a single GUI, which is Fusion. Right? Layered on this is Interset. Interset is our AI and machine learning based UBA solution, which pretty much baselines every user, every device, and every application as part of your organization, right? It not only baselines, but it also baselines it with respect to your peer, so that if there is any anomaly that happens in your organization, it's able to quickly put a risk score to it. And to your SOC analyst, it gives you a simplified GUI where it stack ranks all the entities and users which are on high risk. And when you click on that, you're able to actually analyze as to what are the activities that the person did, which is increasing this risk score, right? And with SOAR, you're able to quickly remediate that, right? And we're now building machine learning and artificial intelligence in all our products because we feel that it's absolutely critical for you to add machine intelligence as part of human intelligence. And the way to go forward, these are the 7 things we talk about. The first point I just made, where you augment human intelligence with machine intelligence. You need to have a consistent and a frequent cyber exposure assessment. You need to have an identity access and management program running. You need to have data privacy. You need to have a next-gen SOC where you're actively hunting for known and unknown threats. You need to have software assurance. You need to have an application security program. And to cover it all, you need to follow the principles of zero trust. Trust nobody, no one, and no device. Every time there is an access request that is made, they need to go through identification, they need to go to authentication, authorization, and you need to have an audit on pretty much, and governance on pretty much everything that we do. This is what we in CyberRes in Microfocus would like to work with you and help you gain a cyber resilient posture. Thank you.